Alright, what is up my homies and welcome today to Gray Gaming. Today on a very special episode of Settlement Builds for Noobs. I asked you in a recent community poll what settlement location you would like to see showcased on this channel, and you voted overwhelmingly for Vault 88. So that is what we're going to do today. So I had to completely tear down Vault 88 for this build showcase. I actually had a tower build down here. I've never been a fan of the Vault build set. It has a number of problems going for it, but it's also kind of the only one that makes any sense down here. So the tower build was more for practical purposes than anything, but I really wanted to give this showcase its all. I didn't just want to show another tower build, especially one underground. So that's what we're doing today by showing you Vault 88 in all of its Vault Tech splendor. Alright, so the first thing you're going to notice when we step into our vault is the fact that we have many turrets facing this direction. So this is one of the major ingress points for attackers during settlement attacks. I'm not sure how many points there are exactly because they have to travel so far to actually get to this end of the vault, but I do know that there are a lot of them and attacks here kind of suck to deal with. So here we have a number of heavy laser turrets as well as a shotgun turret, some ballistic turrets as well. So as soon as anything gets inside, they immediately have to deal with turrets. So the heavy laser turrets are kind of positioned in a way where they all have a point of view with this little square here. So as enemies have to try and move down the stairwell, they have to deal with the heavy laser turrets. And if any of them actually do fight their way in, this nice close range shotgun turret can immediately deal with them as well as multiple ballistic turrets from multiple directions. So it's kind of a defense in-depth strategy for the vault. So the main entrance area, this area that comes pre-built in the game's engine, of course nothing is scrappable, but it also doesn't integrate with the Vault Tech build set at all. So it's really difficult to work with, so I just kind of left it for the most part. I was going to make an actual security office in here with jail cells and everything, but I couldn't get anything to actually snap right in here. So instead, I just decided to abandon any plans that I had for this main area. So as we step in to our main atrium, we see it's pretty empty right now. I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do in the atrium itself. So right now it really just looks big and impressive. It takes quite a bit of lights to actually make it look decent. The shadows in Vault 88 are absolutely god-awful. So you have to use a lot of lights from a lot of different sources to actually make it look decent in here. But I think I did a pretty good job of making a warm and inviting vault atrium here. Of course, at the top of the stairwell, we have the Overseer's main window, so he can look out over his vault. Up here on the second floor, we have this really neat open air trading post. So we've got our commissary sign, we've got some Vault Boy and Vault Girl decorations in the corners, and we've got our usual fare for our market. We have our junk dealer, we have our weapons, armor, and clothing. So, but we also have this nice open railing to look at so that we can actually see or just kind of look out over the atrium while we're working. And okay, she's not following me around. I was starting to get nervous there that she was going to ask me to do crap for her. All right, so that is it for our storefront. We also have a gym, which is not nearly as well lighted, but honestly, I was running out of lights from my previous build, and I was just throwing as many in here as was necessary to actually see what was going on. So we've got our usual fare for our gym. We've got a row of pommel horses, we've got a couple rows of weight sets, and we've got our power bikes. So I don't have them hooked into the power grid because I don't have anyone actually assigned to these bikes, but they're there for aesthetic reasons as some other form of exercise equipment. Stepping in here to the arcade, this one is a little different from what we normally see. It's the same basic concept, but for the most part, It's different in a couple of ways. One is mostly due just to the fact that this is using the Vault-Tec build set. So the vault ceilings are actually a bit higher than the ones for the concrete ceilings. So I was actually able to fit in this hoop shot, which is still clipping through the floor or through the ceiling a little bit, but there was enough room that I could actually place a hoop shot in here, where ordinarily the only ones that fit, or only arcade equipment that fits, is the Whack-A-Kami and the atomic rollerballs from Nuka World. So having the hoop shot to throw in here kind of adds a little bit more variety. And using the nursery build set, so the rooms have various different wallpapers on their walls, and using the nursery build set, I was able to get kind of this cool rocket and atom pattern. So it actually looks kind of more like what you would expect to find in an arcade. So we do have this nice bar seating. We do have a card table, so if you want to pull up and play a game of Caravan or something like that, you're able to do that. We do have a pool table, but I didn't go through the trouble of locating a bunch of pool balls and pool cues and throwing them in here, so it's just there. And we also have our required Vault 88 arcade, or not arcade, our slot machines, and our Creation Club arcade cabinets. So if you do not have the arcade cabinets from the Creation Club, or you're a purist and don't want any outside influence on your build, you can always just stick with a longer row of these Vault 88 slot machines, which accomplish the exact same task. And that's really it for our arcade. So I kind of like how that one turned out. That's the only part that I really feel looks better and does a better job here than it does with the concrete build set. So taking a step over here, we have our cafeteria area. So as we step in, it's our usual fare for the cafeteria. We've got our soda machine from Vault 88. We've got various drink dispensers and ice machines. We have a Nuka-Cola mixer. We have our level 3 bar. And we have our tray for dirty dishes. We have our sink to wash the dirty dishes. And we also have our stove for cooking in. But I was able to clip the stove through the wall. So unlike the concrete that doesn't play well with that little tactic, the Vault-Tec wall actually lets you clip all of the stove piping through the wall, so that if you're dealing with a nice hermetically sealed vault, the last thing you would want is to use a wood cook stove where all of the smoke would just pour back inside. So having that ability to push this stove further back through the wall actually does a pretty good job. We also have some Eatatronics here, so if you were just taking a quick break from work, you didn't want to have to come down here, wait in line, and then eat a full meal. You could just come grab something quick out of the Eatatronic and go. So we have that. And then we have our usual seating. We have our dirty diner seating, just because there isn't a cleaner version that was offered in the Vault 88 DLC. And then we have this nice stainless steel picnic tables, like what you normally see at my other settlements as well. So the cafe looks a little different because we've got the nice cafe flooring and a little bit of the Vault-Tec signage on the walls, or painting, whatever that is. But for the most part, pretty standard fare for my settlements. And then in here, we have the clinic, which is the same basic story. We have our layer 3, level 3 doctor. We have various health-related Vault-Tec signage along the walls. We also have our Phoraptor and a barber chair, as well as various couches to sit and wait for whichever of these services we're waiting for. So it does a pretty good job, and it's not quite as clean as I would like for something that's supposed to be new construction, but overall, not too bad. And then over here, on this side, we have our pump room. So I did not like the Vault-Tec style water pump that generates 100 water. That was forcing this site to get attacked all of the flipping time because of just the sheer amount of excess water that it generated. So I instead decided to just switch with a standard water pump system that is right here in the vault. It's not down a super long corridor or anything. And so the water would be immediately available where we could pump it through the various pipelines here. So I prefer this. It generates a lot less water, which is fine because I really don't need a water farm for this playthrough. I have so many settlements that are all linked together. Almost all of them generate more water than they need anyway. So I really don't need a water farm. Plus, I mean, I have 386,000 caps, so it's not like I'm hurting financially either. So for this playthrough, for my purposes, 3 water pumps is more than sufficient. So stepping out over here, this is one of the main areas that enemies tend to attack from. I'm not sure where they spawn at the far end of the cave system, but they do end up having to come through this corridor. So we have another set of turrets, which are firing from a nice elevated position, and it's just ballistic, heavy laser, and missile, as is usual fare for my defense strategy. So we've got lots of ballistic damage, explosive damage, we've got energy weapon damage, and all of them fire at different ranges. So it kind of creates that defense in depth where they're slowly working their way through. Here is another exit point for the vault, where once again we have a elevated shooting platform. This has 2 heavy laser turrets and 2 ballistic turrets, all facing down this way. This is the way to the water pump. So the big Vault-Tec style water pump is down that corridor. And so we really don't need to worry about having to send people down there to repair it if it's damaged during an attack or anything. I don't remember if anything actually spawns down here. I do know that I've had issues where the pump has been damaged before in an attack, but I don't remember if that's just kind of a pre-canned result of you not responding to an attack fast enough, or whether there actually are bad guys who spawn and then walk straight for the water pump or not. But here we've got our handy dandy turrets to defend against anyone coming up that tunnel. And I do know for a fact that enemies do come from this direction as well. So more elevated shooting turrets, and it's again our usual fare: ballistic, missile, and heavy laser. So different ranges to do different things. And you can kind of get a feel for just how big the vault actually is. So one thing that I used to do when I was very new to settlement building was I actually used Vault-Tec for a lot of stuff, but I soon became very disenfranchised with it and stopped using it, mostly just because from the outside it looks pretty terrible, especially for an above ground settlement. Also, a lot of things have to snap to other things with the Vault-Tec build set, and they have slight overlaps, so you end up with a lot of kind of this strobing glitch where they're slightly overlapping each other when they snap. So I really don't like that. I think it taxes your video hardware pretty extensively. So that's really it for this main atrium area and everything that is attached to it, but there is still a lot to this vault that you haven't seen yet. So taking a trip over here, we have 2 main stairwells leading in 2 different directions. We have this stairwell, which is basically leading to everything you need to make this settlement run. And then we have this main stairwell that leads to the Overseer's suite. So let's go ahead and check out the Overseer. Hey guys, if you are enjoying this content so far, please consider dropping a like and leaving some feedback in the comments below for the almighty YouTube algorithm. If you want to see more of this content, please consider subscribing, and hitting that notification bell will let you know every time we drop new content on this channel. Also, we just launched a Patreon presence, so if you would like to contribute financially to this channel to allow us to develop this into a finer product that creates more value for you, the viewer, please consider becoming a patron. All that out of the way, let's continue with our settlement build. All right, so in here we have our main waiting area. So this is a normal security checkpoint desk, so it generates security, but if you assign someone here, they'll just sit here in this chair and kind of serve as a watchstander. So I really like this from a perspective that you could actually make this appear to be a secretary. So you can set it up to where people can come in, they sit down, have a seat, and then your secretary lets them in one at a time. It's not actually going to work that way in game, but it would appear that way. So it's a nice kind of world building method. In here, we have the Overseer's office. So we do have the Overseer's desk. We also have a Vault-Tec population management system and a standard terminal. So you can do pretty much anything you need to manage this settlement from here. We also have a nice water fountain in case you don't want to have to leave your office. And we've also got these fairly comfortable looking chairs for people to sit down and have an audience with the overseer. We also have a couch for less formal affairs. So as we step in, and you can kind of see some of that strobing I was talking about, where the stuff slightly glitches through. And heading up the stairwell, we come to my main living quarters that Clem, oh, I guess that's not Clem, it's just a random settler, is apparently just in my business. So this is the main living quarters for my settlement, or for the overseer. So we've got some couches laid out, we have a private bar area, we've got a private dining table, we've got a couple radios, a big ass boombox speaker. So we've got kind of that nice main living area for an overseer to have their own personal little fiefdom going on. We also have a private bedroom, and this is pretty standard for some of my minor overseer suites, where I've got a nice wraparound desk so that if I need to sit down, write some papers, or disassemble a weapon or something, I have that here. I forgot to put in a chair though. I probably should rectify that. I also have a dresser, a Vault 88 trunk to store some of my stuff in. Of course, I have my own personal bed, and I do have a couch for just sitting and relaxing. And here in the back of the overseer suite, I do have a personal bathroom with a toilet, a sink, and a shower, which is a decontamination arch by design. So if you use it, it will take care of your rads. And so that is, I didn't step through fast enough. All right, so that is really it for the Overseer Suite. So I kind of like how that turned out. I've never gone that in depth with the Overseer Suite before, and I'm pretty happy that I did. It didn't do too gnarly. I wish that those doors closed automatically behind you, but they don't. All right. And so this corridor leads up to our upper levels, which is our living quarters and our maintenance area. So everything we need to make this settlement actually function is up here. So we've got this nice signage telling you everything that runs down the stairs. And then we've got some signage that tells you what runs down this corridor as well as up there. So that's our residential and lavatory area. And this is our, what they say hydroponics, but is actually not hydroponics because we're growing in dirt, but it's our farm area, our reactor, and our maintenance area. So let's go ahead and check it out. So in our farm area, we've got all of these different farming beds with various different crops, all of my usual diversity of food that I normally include so that you don't have to deal with a staple crop being wiped out by a single disease, which doesn't happen in game, but could happen in the real world. So it's a nice way to have crop rotation. It's a way to avoid a single disease wiping out your entire food supply. And it also gives your settlers some nutritional diversity as well, so that they're not going to end up building up nutritional deficiencies. I'm pretty proud of this. This took a while to set up for how simple it is, but I set up a bunch of electrical conduit along the ceiling, and it actually looks like a sprinkler system. So if you're trying to set up some sort of indoor grow operation where you have these fluorescent lights, which I'm imagining are actually grow lights, then you can set up these sprinkler systems and actually make it look like make it look like that is how your crops are being watered. So I really like how that turned out. I think I'm going to try and use this for future greenhouse builds. But like I said, getting it aligned just right to where you're not going off center is very difficult. So this took way more time than it should have. And in here we have our reactor room and workshop area. So we've got kind of this nice little cordoned off area for our normal workshop. So our weapons, armor, chemistry station, power armor. So anything that doesn't go in the cafeteria goes here. So it does pretty good job, and it doesn't look out of place at all here. But here we have our main Vault-Tec reactor, which looks absolutely awesome, but this should just kind of give you an idea why I don't like using these at my other settlement. So number one it takes up 4 floor squares. So these floor squares are part of the generator object. So they take up a lot of room horizontally. But as I showed you in the arcade, the walls are actually higher with your Vault-Tec build set than they are with the concrete build set. And we have to go 2 wall heights high just to fit this generator in here. So if I were to try and integrate one of these into my tower builds where they are put in the basement, I would have to make a 3-level tall basement just to fit one of these reactors. And they only produce 50% more power than the fusion generators. So pound for pound, I could fit 4 fusion generators in the same amount of floor space as this, and I would only need half the height to make them work. So that's why I go with the fusion generators instead of these. But for this build, the Vault-Tec reactor looks much more at home. And I wasn't sure if I would need to use 2 of them or not. So there is actually enough floor space where if I needed to throw in another Vault-Tec fusion reactor, I could just pull out these 4 floor pieces and snap a second reactor in, and it's good to go. The nice thing about Vault-Tec is that all you really need is for these to be connected to the floor, and the power is pretty much taken anywhere in the vault. All you need is to snap in one of these connectors, and it automatically acts like you ran a wire. So I had to run this wire to power my overseer shower. But for here, or for running just normal lights, things that don't need direct power connections, snapping one of these in acts exactly the same as running a wire to one of these connectors. So you'll see and notice throughout the vault that I have a number of these just snapped into the wall at random places, and that's really just to make the lights work. And that's it for the reactor area. So let's go ahead and keep going. So up here at the top level, we have 2 main corridors to choose from. We have the residential corridor and the lavatory corridor. So here we have all of our toilets. So toilet and a sink. All 6 of these rooms are, for the most part, identical. So I won't get into all of them. You've seen this at all of my other settlements. Down this corridor, we also have 2 showers. So instead of just the 1 shower for the overseer, everyone at this settlement has the ability to take one. So we've got these nice private showers. They're not a group communal shower like you see at Starlight Drive-In, so you get a little bit more privacy with it as well. And just like the one in the overseer's office, these are decon chambers by design, so anyone using them would instantly get their rads cured. So that is it for the lavatory deck. And now for residential. So residential is a bit dark because I didn't bother putting any lights in here. I was starting to notice a bit of a reduced frame rate here. So I decided to stop populating where I was. For the most part, settlers spend virtually no time in these anyway, except for when they're sleeping. So having lights is kind of unnecessary. So we do have our usual setup. We have a bed and we have a Vault 88 trunk for them to keep their stuff in, which is more than you could really expect as far as privacy and being able to store your personal stuff anywhere else in the wasteland. So these all look pretty well identical. This corridor, everyone has kind of this fancy 60s style wallpaper. And down this corridor, it switches to a blue paint job. So we have some different styles of rooms, and I did that because I just had extra Vault-Tec pieces. There's actually a rather frightening number of stored vault objects where I started building something and it just didn't work. I had to undo what I was doing several times in this attempt to actually make this work. So another reason I don't like using the Vault-Tec build style is not all of your plans are going to work on the first attempt. A lot of times you have to modify and go back over. But with that said, this is really the Vault 88 entire settlement. Wow, that was difficult to say. So with all that said, this has been the entirety of Vault 88. It's a lot larger than what I'm normally able to construct, usually because I make the mistake of going with that large vaulted Vault 88 ceiling, and it just does not work here. It takes up so much necessary real estate that by going with a flat roof for my atrium, I was actually able to fit an additional 2 stories into this settlement, which worked nice. I might be able to actually cram a 5th story in if I really wanted, but 4 is really pushing it and is really all you need for a settlement of 20 settlers, which is what this settlement has the capacity to support. So with all that out of the way, that's Vault 88. Do you guys have any ideas for how I could have improved this settlement? Do you have any ideas for what I could do to make this grand atrium look a little more lived in without just piling garbage everywhere? Let me know your feedback in the comments below. As always, a like and subscribe is appreciated. And with all that out of the way, I'm Gray. This has been Gray Gaming. Stay safe, and I hope to see you all here next time.